All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Ask a Maker Educator. We are super excited to be here with another live online series to discuss some amazing topics in maker education and to answer your questions and to give you an opportunity to connect with some of the awesome maker educators out there doing great work. My name's Danny. I'm the community coordinator at Maker Ed. And today I am really excited to introduce two maker educators, two maker educator tinkerer extraordinaires. We have Ryan Jenkins from the Exploratorium here in San Francisco and Ashanti Davis from Fleet Science Center in San Diego. And I will let them introduce themselves, but in general, we're going to be digging into the exciting and maybe kind of new for some of you topic of computational tinkering. So take it away. Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do.
Great. Hey everybody, my name's Ryan. I work here at the Exploratorium in a public workshop space that we call the Tinkering Studio. This is an area where kids can come into the museum, slow down, and actually get their hands on making something or building something, and more importantly, really get to experiment with their own ideas. So in our group, we all do a little bit of everything. I work with training our staff, also doing some research and development around activities and exhibits, and then do professional development, working with teachers and librarians, after-school educators, trying to spread the word about tinkering.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashanti. I am the exhibits project supervisor at the Fleet Science Center in San Diego. I oversee all of our permanent collection exhibits and our traveling ones, including our Tinkering Studio, which is our maker and innovation space for the Science Center, where our visitors can get hands-on with activities of all sorts. And we teach workshops to school groups, corporate groups, families, multi-generational families, and are continuing to expand. We now have an adult-only program where we can go enjoy cocktails and get hands-on with making and explore science. But it's a little bit of what I do.
Sounds like a good time. That's my kind of.
It is. It's really fun.
Awesome. And so I really encourage, if you're out there watching and you want to get involved in this discussion, on the side of the YouTube video, there's a little chat box. You can go ahead and throw your questions in there. You can also use Twitter, #MakerEd, and tag MakerEd. And we will be sure to get your questions answered. So hopefully you can jump in. To start though, I want to dig into just what is computational tinkering. I know what computational learning is. I know what tinkering is. How do these two things interrelate? How do you define this term? And whoever wants to jump in can jump in.
Go, Ryan.
Okay, I'll go. So I mean, I think for me, a big part of tinkering is this idea of demystifying some elements of art or of science, giving people the chance to actually try them, you know, experience what it's like to practice art or practice science. I think computation or programming is something else that is a little bit, could be intimidating, or people might feel like it's not for them. So I think computational tinkering is a way to let people focus on their own ideas as they're exploring concepts around programming, digital tools, kind of anything that involves computers and electronics.
Awesome. Ashanti, do you define it similarly in your space?
Yes. For us, computational tinkering is actually a new subject that we're really excited about. Our Tinkering Studio was actually created because of the Exploratorium's Tinkering Studio. So we started and focused, when I started, the focus was still more heavy into the craft and I guess the origins of tinkering, very simple materials. But we are moving forward into more computational tinkering to explore technology, because it's such a huge part of it. And I think there's something really special when you can actually put the two together. So our visitors are exploring it through workshops primarily right now, but we're looking to continue expanding that in our studio.
And I think, I mean, if I can just add on, I mean, I think a big, you know, point of doing this computational tinkering is just tinkering in general allows you to focus a little bit less, not solely on the content of the subject. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important with computational tinkering that, you know, although we are exploring some concepts around computer science and computational tinkering, we're also exploring process and practices and just the attitudes and confidence that people can have to feel comfortable trying these things.
definitely. So you think that it sounds like the tinkering aspect is that more open-ended and something that do you feel, I guess my question is, do you feel like that is lacking from other ways of exploring computational learning in certain ways, or how do you feel like?
I mean, I think, to me, and Ashanti, you can jump in, but I think, there's a lot of opportunities, or maybe not a lot, but there's growing opportunities to learn about computation, programming, code.org, but a lot of those sites might do it in a more instructive way.
Sure.
So we're trying to open that up, have it be a little bit more based on learners' personal ideas, and allow them to build something creative that they care about as they're engaging with these same ideas of programming and computation.
Sure.
I totally agree. It's purely exploratory. You can give them the tools without having to sit in like a lecture for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and getting a lot of information. You get a little bit of information, and then you can explore it and see what you can do with it. And I think that's the biggest part of tinkering, is see what you can do with it, not what this person tells you that you should do with it. So, yeah.
And so what does that look like in action? So Ashanti, you started to mention that you're running some workshops around it. That's your way in right now. What does that look like in practice?
We got a really fun grant maybe a little over a year ago now, to create, we got some 3D printers. And we got 4 of them through the grant, and then we're like, what are you going to do with these? So one of the things we thought we'd do with this, thought we would have workshops where we could actually teach people, and we started 7 and older to teach them CAD, because it's something that's going to come up everywhere, and it's already creeping in everywhere and into everything. So we thought, why not? Let's teach CAD. So we prototyped it with a pilot with our volunteers and some staff members, and it was great. And we've been teaching it now, I want to say we've been a little over maybe a year and a half now. We're coming into our last session of the year in January, our first session of 2017 in January. I'm really excited. And our visitors can, in 3 workshops, they're 2 hours each, and they get to basically learn how to use CAD, and they get to make their own object and print it on a printer. And it's something that they care about, or it's something that's really silly and fun. Somebody made a pig statue once that was just so cute, but they loved it, and it's great.
And so thinking about maybe so I've learned CAD. I learned it by just kind of watching YouTube videos and going from that. How does the tinkering play into that, and how does it really enhance the learning of something like CAD?
Well, for us, we wanted to give our visitors an opportunity to get hands-on with something that they don't see in their normal life. And so we collaborated. We actually have our teacher is from he has his own place called the FX Dojo here in San Diego, and that's what he teaches to college students, to everyone. So we wanted to give them an opportunity to think about tinkering in a different way, because our studio was so focused on the craft aspect of it. We wanted to show them that tinkering is also this.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing. So it's just, I don't know. They do with it what they will. And I'll show you a couple things. We've got some pictures here. So that's a 3D printed object. And this is the same object. So it's just like a vase. And this is the same object printed even smaller. And so they get an opportunity to scale things up and down and play with it, because they're not architects right now. They might be 7. Some of them are. We actually had some adults take one. They're retired. This is not their everyday job. They get to play with it. And I think that's, for us, is the notion, is this idea of play. Just play with it and see what you can do.
That's great. I think that's something that's super exciting. It's just like you learn a skill, but then you get to really play, and finding ways to do that in a tech-focused way is really awesome.
Yeah.
Interrupt you though, Ryan.
No, I was just going to say, it seems like maybe part of it is this idea of people setting their own goals also, where in a traditional lesson, you might be trying to, make a specific thing with specific requirements, but in a tinkering environment, I could see how a CAD workshop really allows people to express themselves and build something that they're interested, that meets their own goals, and that they're happy defining for themselves what success looks like.
Sure. It's not just learn to scale something by making a cube. It's make that thing that connects to you and then learn to scale it. Awesome. Ryan, did you have some examples that you wanted to share of your tinkering, computational tinkering in action?
I'm going to try to see if I can share my screen.
Okay, let's see how it goes.
as I talk about like technology and things like that. But it's got it. Okay, cool. But I'll just share a couple photos of some of the experiments we've tried in the Tinkering Studio. For us, it's a little bit different than Ashanti's program in San Diego because we have a drop-in space in the museum where kids and families can come in and they really decide how long they'd like to stay in the space. So I think a lot of what our research and development have been is how to make these activities kind of have a low threshold. They can be easily able to jump in, but also have wide walls so people really can make something of themselves. And then I think the other big point for us is that it's been a lot of collaboration. So this first picture is with Rika Rose Roque, who was a member of the Scratch team at MIT, and now she's a professor at University of Colorado Boulder. But she came and spent about a week with us just experimenting with some combining the physical world and the digital world. So doing some storytelling activities using Scratch programming language. So this was an activity that she helped us facilitate. Here's another one where people would actually draw characters with markers and then insert those into an environment and try to make them move. So I think there's a theme of combining the physical world, something that you're actually creating, with the digital world. Another example of that we've tried is working with a program called Beetle Blocks. So this was something that was developed by another former Scratch team member and some collaborators, and I'm trying to get everyone's names right, but Eric Rosenbaum and Duke Kochitz and Bernard Romagosa, they developed this software that's like Scratch. It's a way to program through snapping together blocks to make loops and patterns. And what's different about it is that you can export those files to a tool. So we had people experimenting with, creating their own program and design. And then instead of a 3D printer, we used a watercolor bot. So something that was developed by Evil Mad Scientist and actually a 12-year-old maker called Super Awesome Sylvia, who worked together to develop this watercolor machine as a way to print out some digital files. One last one that I wanted to share was something that we've been calling Scratch Paper. And so this is an idea of working with Arduino, but making it a little bit more approachable. So we made our own tinkering shield for the Arduino, which is actually just adding copper nails and wires to the pins to make it a little bit easier to connect them with alligator clips. We also were inspired by Ji Chi, who's a paper circuit artist who made Chibitronics stickers, and she's been doing a lot of great art and education around circuits and paper and copper tape. So we combined those two things to actually allow people to take the Arduino and take these paper circuits and again use Scratch, or this is a Scratch X extension, where people could actually get those paper circuits to blink on and off, add sound effects into the computer, kind of make some sort of a, initial way of experimenting with LEDs, sensors, switches, and programming. This is a kind of setup for when we were testing the workshop out with our team. And we've actually developed Instructable. So if people go on Instructables, they can actually get the resources about how we built the circuit parts and some of the starter programs that we've been using. So those are just a few of the things we've been starting with. And just the last thing I wanted to share on that is that we've started to work with some people at MIT and some people, MIT Media Lab and some people at the Lego Foundation. And we're starting to think about how computation can influence or can be related to some other activities we do, exploring light and shadow or exploring sound making machines. So I think as kind of these projects show, we've been doing a lot of experimenting with others, collaborating, borrowing ideas, and then sort of tweaking them and trying to make them work for us in our specific environment here.
That's great. And those are some really wonderful examples. And we will definitely be, so the Instructables and any of those links, we'll be making sure to tweet those out and sharing them so that anyone watching can have access.
Awesome.
Ryan, you kind of started touching on something towards the end there that is, I know one thing I really appreciate about tinkering experiences is the community that builds around those types of experiences. How have you seen that kind of play out in your spaces where people are connecting and collaborating in exciting ways around these computational tinkering workshops or projects?
Do you want to go, Ashanti?
For us, it's actually been our staff members. It's not been our visitors just yet. So our studio is still growing, and we're actually at a breaking point right now where we're a little bit too big for our space, which is fun. We do have a drop-in space, but again, we're growing and changing. So we're moving more into computational tinkering now. So one of the staff members and I actually just did a code.org workshop, which was super fun. And now I have this giant book. And you can get one of these because they do this workshop for free, which is really, really cool. And we just did it, and it was an opportunity actually for us to engage with more educators in the space to talk about what the possibilities of what we could do even with them with scratch coding and very simple kind of the snap coding and everything like that. And we're actually very excited, again, on that collaborative point, we're moving into Arduino. And we've never had Arduino in the studio before, so we're really excited about it. And that's actually why we took the workshop, to see more things of what could be done with Arduino. So for us, it's been less about our visitors collaborating and all of us as a team here collaborating, so that way we can see how we can create opportunities for our visitors. So it hasn't happened yet, so I'll have to let you know in a couple months.
It sounds like you're on the absolute right track, though, and that you're gearing up.
We're really excited.
Yeah, some really great stuff.
Yes.
And I mean, if I add, I think we're in a little bit of that same place because none of us are experts on computer science or computer engineering, at least in our group here at the Tinkering Studio.
Yeah.
So a lot of the preparation is just us learning about those things too, and teaching each other and trying to look out for each other. But I think another kind of interesting point with the computational tinkering is that I think there is a challenge around collaboration because people are a little bit more focused on a screen. It might be a little bit harder to see what other people are doing, which is something that we usually try to encourage in tinkering activities, to say, hey, look around the room, get ideas from each other and borrow them. So I think that's something that partly having, something in the physical world can help with. So if people are building a light and shadow sculpture or playing music, that does sort of draw people in. But I think that's a real challenge we have, and something that we'd like to work on, is how do you make these experiences more collaborative and have people work together?
I think one thing that we're trying to do in the studio, we've noticed with our, we have a wall for our pegboard wall, and our visitors will collaborate on the pegboard wall. So we were thinking about ways that we could incorporate more things like that in the studio that focus more on the computational aspects. So that way we could see if that same collaboration would carry over into that. So we're getting ready to make some aesthetic changes in the studio, and we're hoping to incorporate some more technology to see what our visitors will do with it.
Yeah, I love that idea of the physical kind of bringing people out of that digital turtle shell that they might get themselves into sometimes. Since we're on the subject, and this is something that is always going to come up, what are some other challenges around this? We've definitely focused on the benefits. I think there's a lot of things that you can gain from learning about the digital world like this, but what can be really challenging about it?
For us, I'm going to say space, but also access to materials. So we don't really know what we need. So like I said, we just got Arduino in because we thought, hey, let's do an Arduino workshop. So we got Arduino in for that. So now that we have them and we're going to do the workshop next month, we're kind of like, okay, what else do we need to continue playing with this, not only in a workshop environment, but outside of that? So it comes back for us more collaborating inside our building. We have an entire education department that has laptop computers. So we borrow them from them for our CAD workshop, and we're going to borrow them again for this workshop. But we'd like to, of course, have more of that available on a daily basis, so that way we can begin to introduce that. So for us, it's access right now.
And then I would just add a purely logistical challenge. I think once you start adding in Arduino and computers and software, there's just a lot of preparation or, just making sure everything's charged, making sure everything's connected right. So that's something that I think is a little bit of a learning curve for us. We're very familiar with kind of getting the environment and the materials set up for some of these physical explorations. But I think there's this added layer of making sure all the electronics are working. And there's a little bit of a black box feeling where if things aren't working, it's sometimes hard to tell if that is, a result of, something on the computer, something on the Arduino, something on the connection. So just kind of getting better at troubleshooting some of those things is something that we're working on.
For us, we actually left out with that. One of our coordinators, her husband, he's Arduino is what he does.
Yes.
So we left out that he was like, yeah, I'll come in and, test everything out and make sure it's working great. So that's what he volunteered his time to do that, which we are hugely appreciative of. And it actually is going to be involved in the workshop. And his neighbor is same thing, also in Arduino. So it worked out for us on that respect, that we have so many people involved in that industry who are here and just ready to help. So we're excited about that part.
That's great. We have a question from the audience. Someone watching out there is wondering, since computers can, like we were mentioning, make interaction a little harder sometimes, do you, either of you, both of you, have some facilitation tips and best practices that you'd want to share for if you're running a workshop along these lines?
I mean, I think for me, and this, I mean, it's a little bit universal, same with tinkering, is to try to remember what it is like to be a learner of these things. I think, even though, like I say, we're not experts, or I didn't study, some of these things in school, but even after you start to experiment with some of these things, you forget what it's like the first time somebody comes up to a computer and the blocks and the programming. So I think just kind of slowing down, explaining some of those things a little bit more, and being excited about some of those little things that you might be more advanced on because you've experienced it more, but I think are really powerful moments for the learner. Just programming an LED to blink on and off, especially when it's something that is, playful and a piece of paper and in front of you, like, that is an amazing success, and it's worth celebrating.
Absolutely.
I really like challenges. So once you've kind of done one thing, to kind of go, okay, can you do this now? And then to continue to re-engage with a challenge. Because I mean, it even goes back to things that we do now. Is that sometimes it's like, okay, I'm done. What's next? Like, okay, try something else, and keep the try again. Try something new to see if perhaps there's a different outcome. So ask me in a month though. After the Arduino workshop, and then I'll have a better for computer-based workshops, cool. And I'll be happy to share.
Ashanti, can I challenge you
yes.
to share a story of that process in action, of asking maybe a workshop participant that you or one of your staff members pushed to take that next step?
To try something new? Sure. So oh my God, one of my favorites. We do a workshop called the Steam Shop, where we kind of explore STEAM and innovation. And so I actually had an adult group, and they were great. And so we put them into smaller groups and gave them a challenge, and then kind of let them explore that challenge with their materials. And they had to make housing. They had to make a model of mobile housing for homeless people in San Diego. And what we wanted to do with them was we'd kind of stop them and introduce a new challenge, and kind of in that kind of pitted them against each other to see what they would do. And not in a bad way, but in a great way, just to see how they would react to it. So in one of them, we gave them a material and then let them decide what they wanted to trade with another group. And one of the teams decided not to trade, so we removed objects from them. And we told them that they had to give up. They had to give up things. And so for that, they had to sit down and think about it and kind of go, why did that happen? And for adults, for kids, you kind of they kind of like look at it as a repercussion. For adults, they kind of go, And then after that, they actually became more open and more willing to share and participate. but it changes, for at least for me, for every workshop that I teach. I'd like to change them at least a little bit so that the interactions and what they get out of them are a little bit different. So it's a hard question, so I don't know.
Seems like it's a little bit like when you talk about materials, there's kind of a challenge and a facilitation opportunity around the fact that, at least with some of these programming languages or with an Arduino, people might not even know what the possibilities are, in the same way that if you look at a table and see, marbles and tracks and tubes, you kind of immediately see what's there. Some of these computational activities, there's menus and kind of hidden options. So as a facilitator, figuring out ways to either expand the set of materials and show people more options, give them more opportunities to do things, or constrain the materials a little bit more and say, oh, there's these whole category of blocks in Scratch, but let's not worry about that right now.
Yeah.
I think those are both really good techniques to get people to focus on, completing something on their project.
Excellent. Thank you. That was some awesome advice. It is perfect timing because we're getting close to being out of time. So with our last couple minutes, I would love for both of you to share what are some resources that really stand out for both of you when it comes to computational tinkering and things that you want to make sure our audience knows about today.
Code.org, of course. Ryan, you mentioned it, and I just did the workshop. Code.org is great, and it's user-friendly at any level, I think, whether you're a beginner or you're later on in the game. And then we use Tinkercad, which is great for exploring CAD. And Tinkercad is a huge community. Actually, recently, I think they crashed their server because they have so many people on it now. But it's fun for us to be able to share that with our visitors who either take the workshop or haven't taken the workshop, to encourage them to maybe want to join us, because they can see the possibilities of what can be done, again, with this idea of just play with it. If you don't know what'll happen. I'll keep thinking. Ryan, what do you have?
I mean, I think just piggybacking off that, I mean, for us, the Scratch team, part of the Lifelong Kindergarten group at MIT, puts out a lot of great resources. Both Scratch as an intro to programming tool, they have some Hour of Code projects to start with, but also a lot of resources for teachers and educators that are on their website. And even they're starting to develop some environments where teachers or educators can limit the amount of blocks to make their own micro world, kind of a limited set of blocks to create their own problem. I think as well, like I mentioned before, the BeetleBlocks website, which is just a free online program, it's a great introductory tool. And I think whether you're using it with a watercolor machine or a 3D printer or even a 2D printer, as we've tried in the Tinkering Studio, that's also really fun and successful for people to print out stickers of the designs that they make is really great. And then I'll just give a plug for our own Tinkering Studio blog. We have on our website, we're constantly sharing both the success stories that we have, but also, the challenges and the things that aren't working so well, or the half-baked ideas that we're still prototyping. So it'd be great if people want to check out our blog and leave comments and let us know what you've tried. We do a lot of these activities so we can share them with others, and that's where we get some of the best feedback about what we should try next.
Totally. And so
I thought of another one.
Sorry, Shanti, let's hear it.
If you don't know, and this is what I do, find someone who does and ask them. I like to bring in all the collaborators, and I bring them into the studio, and I'm like, teach me, because I want to know, so I can be more knowledgeable about it and know what I'm looking for. So I just find someone who knows. It's
super important. Just you mentioned the community resources, either engineers, people who are passionate about Arduino, or artists who use that. And I think that's a great chance to both have them help show you something about computation and programming, but also for you to share some of the values of tinkering around personal expression, focusing on the ideas of the learner, really kind of collaborating in that way is great. Is a great
and get them involved in your space, because once they're in there, they're like, this is great. Keep them involved, and that's a great way to do it.
Great. And if people wanted to get in touch with both of you, is that a possibility?
Absolutely.
What's we will share it out, but just go ahead, Ashanti. How can people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Send me an email, adavis, Davis @rhfleet.org, or of course on Twitter, Ashanti Tinkers, at Ashanti Tinkers.
Yeah, I'm kind of a Twitteraholic as well. So it's at Ryan E. Jenkins, and then also rjenkins at exploratorium.edu. And it'd be great to hear other questions or just get ideas from everyone about what they're excited about and what you're trying.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ashanti and Ryan, for joining us today. This has been another awesome session. Ask a Maker Educator is going to be taking a couple weeks off for the holidays, so we'll be back January 11th. Yes, that's correct, January 11th, to start up again. So everyone enjoy your holidays, do some making, send us questions, send Ryan and Ashanti your tinkering questions, and I will see you all again in January.
Great. Thanks, Danny.
Ryan, thanks, Ashanti.
Bye, Danny. Thank
All
you.
right, bye. Happy holidays, everybody.